There is no shortage of global crises these days. Between the global pandemic, Hong Kong, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the list is long. The world relies on the European Union to offer a united position in defense of human rights, but lately the EU keeps failing. Why? It's got a lot to do with one EU member state in particular, Hungary.
Example 1. Last month, Israeli-Palestinian tensions boiled over into one of the deadliest episodes of the conflict in years.
The EU wanted to make a statement in support of a ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas. That statement was never made. Why? Hungary put in a veto.
Example 2. Mass pro-democracy protests swept through Hong Kong in 2019.
After China enacted a new security law that tightened its control over Hong Kong, the European Union wanted to make a statement expressing its concern over the erosion of human rights. That statement was never made. Hungary put in a veto.
I do think that Hungary unfortunately betrays the core democratic values of the European Union, and there are many obvious cases where I think none of the democratic countries should dare to veto decisions. And I think when it comes to the issues of Hong Kong, for example, it is clearly a case like that.
This is where the voting process takes place, the Council of the European Union in Brussels. Depending on the issue, decisions are made by a simple majority, qualified majority, or by unanimous vote by all 27 EU member states.
EU foreign policy decisions require unanimity to pass. But if EU members cannot even agree on a statement to defend human rights, what does it signal to the rest of the world?
Hungary rejects the EU's criticism of its recent veto, saying, quote, "According to treaties of the Union, full agreement is needed on important issues such as foreign policy." Hungary therefore acted in accordance with the basic treaty when it vetoed. To accuse Hungary of being non-European because it exercised its right set forth in the treaty is in fact deeply non-European.
Of course, Hungary has the right to veto, but the problem is twofold. First of all, Hungary usually vetoes decisions that aim to express the value commitment of the European Union, especially when it comes to foreign policy. Systemically vetoing such decisions is undermining the values of the European Union and undermining the already pretty weak foreign policy leverage of the European Union. So this is one problem. The other problem is that Hungary has gradually become the most pro-Russian and most pro-Chinese member state within the European Union.
Hungary has been defying consensus and using its veto card in the EU partly because it wants to increase its economic ties with China. And to do that, it needs to align itself politically with China.
Hungary is both an EU and NATO member. But since Orban took office in 2010, he's been openly pursuing an Eastern opening strategy in the hopes of attracting Chinese investment. The coronavirus pandemic has moved this strategy forward. At the beginning of the pandemic, Prime Minister Viktor Orban himself inspected tons of supplies that had arrived at the Budapest airport from China: ventilators, protective gear, and more. In the latest move toward China, Hungary's foreign minister announced the country would begin to produce China's Sinopharm in 2022. Hungary is also the only country in the EU to inoculate its citizens with the Chinese COVID-19 vaccine. Not to mention the diplomatic ties, the welcome ceremonies for the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang in Hungary, and various visits by Orban with President Xi Jinping in China. The implications of Hungary turning to China are concerning for the EU, especially for NATO security. A detailed report by Hungarian investigative outlet Direct 36 documented how the country's Eastern opening policy creates a friendly environment for Chinese intelligence. In short, making Budapest a spy hub.
There's an increasing number of Chinese students flowing in to the country, and China is known for using its citizens, forcing them to feed information to Chinese intelligence. And of course, China is mostly not interested in what's happening in Hungary. They are not interested in Hungarian high-tech because there are none.
One of the most controversial Chinese projects in Hungary is yet to be built. By 2024, Shanghai's Fudan University wants to open its very first European campus in Budapest at this site. Hungary plans to finance the mega project reportedly through a 1.5 billion euro loan from a Chinese bank. Construction will be carried out using Chinese materials and labor. So who benefits?
Hungary, I think, has vetoed the most in favor of China. So China is the number one beneficiary of Hungary's disruptive power inside the EU, but we don't actually see Chinese foreign direct investment flowing in, pouring in to the country. Some say that in order to gain the trust of the Chinese, you have to develop a relationship on the long run. So it means that you need to put a lot of effort and years to convince them that you're a trusted partner.
Not all Hungarians are happy with the government's close ties with China, and they're taking action. A couple thousand protesters gathered at Budapest Kossuth Square recently to stop the planned construction of Fudan University and to demand affordable housing for Hungarian students instead. At the planned construction site of the campus, Budapest Liberal Mayor Karácsony has put up new street signs. He's a key critic of Orban. The signs now read Free Hong Kong Road or Dalai Lama Road, an attempt to underline that possible political and economic gain should never outweigh speaking up against human rights violations. So what is the purpose of the vetoes exercised by Orban's government?
That Hungary only vetoes the decisions that they feel that are rather symbolic, therefore they do not really block anything, but at the same time this way he can send gestures towards Beijing, towards Moscow and towards other illiberal and authoritarian states that you have an ally within the European Union. Hungary obviously serves as an outlier and wants to be an outlier, and I think it clearly undermines the image of the European Union, the leverage of the European Union, and also the European Union's role as a kind of democratic model.
For the EU to live up to its credentials as a defender of human rights, it needs to find a way to bring Hungary back into the fold.